All right, and welcome to Good Vibes. I'm Martin Falls, and tonight the topic you just need to start sharing this one. Guys, listen very carefully. How to flirt with women. This is going to be good. All right. Debbie Cox de Nova is in the house.
Hi.
How to flirt with women.
Yeah.
Debbie, how you doing?
We have talked about flirting before, but
Yeah.
today we're going to focus on flirting specifically with women because I think that it's a question. Certainly I have talked to a lot of men who have questions about this, and it's typically the men who are pursuing, right? Not always, but typically. So it's good to know what science says about flirting. So the reality is that we are all selecting for something in a mate. And so when it comes to flirting, I'd like to talk about the don'ts, the do's, and then the cues that are telling you that the woman is saying, keep going, and that you're getting somewhere with it. Because the reality is that men are missing most of the cues that women are putting out there. So, women at home, if you're watching, recognize that you actually need to give a man more cues that he's actually being effective in his flirting than you're actually doing because he's missing.
Yeah, but you're just telling all the women now they're going to go to the nightclub. They're going to throw out a bogus kind of hint, knowing that you just said it, reel them in, and then shush them away.
Are they? I hope not. I hope those are the wrong types of women to be pursuing out there. So if
Oh,
she
hey,
does that, that's a
okay.
disqualification,
All right,
if
I'm
you ask
ready.
me. Okay, so let's start with the deal breakers. Okay, according to science, there are 11 deal breakers that were identified in science, and I just want to go through them really quickly because
Oh,
I'd really
can't
like to
wait.
focus on the do's. Okay, so I'm going to read them off real quick. The top three. The first one, the most deal breakingest deal breaker, is a slimy approach. So having a slimy approach is the number one thing that was listed. Bad hygiene is the second one. Lack of exclusive interest is the third. So those are the top three. Then we have different viewpoints. So if you're not compatible, that's a deal breaker. Vulgar vocabulary, lack of intelligence, narcissism, lack of humor, low self-esteem, excessive intimacy. Okay, so those are the top deal breakers. And so we look at what women are actually selecting for. It makes sense why these would be deal breakers. So let's go over that. And I would really like to spend some time on this because we talked about flirting before and we talked about the Webster University study that talks about the 5 ways. So we have you remember the copulatory gaze, right?
Yeah.
And the touching, which was like you have the friendly touch, the plausible deniability, which is like forearm and waist, and then you have nuclear, which is the face, right? But I want to talk about some dating tips that come from Charlie Rupert, who is from Charisma on Command. Okay, and he has some really interesting things to say from his experience in coaching men. First of all, men are just not going for it anymore. Like 99% of the men he talks to, the main issue is not that they're striking out when they go in, it's they're not going in. That's how scary it has become in the dating world. So the first thing to recognize is that when you are going in, what you want to do is come with curiosity. So a lot of times people are coming in, men are coming in thinking like, okay, how am I going to get her to understand that I'm interested in her? But the problem with that is that women are looking for men with high standards. Okay. She wants to know that you're choosing her because you have high standards and she's met those standards. You can't possibly know that right off the bat. So, coming in with curiosity, just seeking connection is the very first thing. Remember that one of the top breakers is deal breakers is a slimy approach and having too much of a broad interest. This is why men who have the reputation for players are a no, because what does that mean to be a player? It means that you have low standards. It means that as long as she fits maybe the profile, like a beautiful face or body, you'll take whoever, right?
Every man is labeled a player. It's our job to talk them into thinking that we're not.
Right. And actually not
Yeah.
being so. Like actually list out for yourself so you know what your standards are. So this is good if you've actually been in the dating field for a while. You actually have a wealth of experience to draw from. You actually want to create a list of things that you loved about the people that you dated. And this goes for women too. If you're in the dating world, this is really important. And then the things that you did not love. You want to know this for yourself because on the dating field, you want to convey your high standards. For example, in conversation, what you would want to do is show your value. So if you know that someone who is rude and nasty to people is a deal breaker for you. You put that down on paper. Now your job in front of the woman that you're interested in is to demonstrate that you have this value. So if someone is rude to a waiter or a waitress, you say, I can't stand that. No matter how beautiful someone is, if they're rude to the staff or their waiter, it's a deal breaker for me. Now you're demonstrating I have high standards, I have high values. You're conveying the values. So Charlie Rupert says that the first order of business really is to come in with curiosity and actually make a connection without conveying right away, I want to sleep with you, or I love the way your butt looks in those jeans, right? The slimy approach, right? You want to make sure that it's just like you're actually looking to see if she meets your standards, and that only can happen through conversation. Now, one of the things that men are talking about is that, okay, well, women are exiting the scene, like exiting the conversation really quickly. So he says you want to make sure that your conversation skills are up to speed, right? You want to make sure you're not boring her to death, that she's not saying, okay, well, I need to go to the bathroom, and then she's not coming back, right? So remember that on a first date situation, in a bar situation, when you're just meeting, women are just looking to vibe, right? They just want to they want to vibe, or they want to like get a sense of who you are as a person. What are your values? And so they're sort of screening for that. It's not an interview. It's not a podcast. He said that he talks to a lot of men who walk in with their business cards, and right away they're giving a resume. This is what I do. And he says there's a time and a place for that. It comes afterward. But how much more interesting is it than versus coming in, giving a card and being like, well, I'm an investment maker with this company. Instead of doing that, actually starting with humor and playfulness and creating a connection first. And then when she asks you what you do, you connect what you do to your values. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Hold that thought. I like humor, in a woman too. So guys like humor back. And Aaron was joking. He's directing the show. He's in my earpiece. He said, sounds like I got to go home and apologize for something.
It's possible.
So we were talking about humor. I love having a conversation with a woman where humor is involved and they jabbing back and we're jabbing forward. It's almost like a good court battle, but it's got a lot of humor in it. Yeah, that's fun.
It is fun. And humor, according to Vanessa Van Edwards, is a top priority when it comes to selecting for a mate because it signals intelligence. And also a playful vibe, right? Remember that women are looking for a vibe. What kind of energy are you bringing to the situation? Is it playful and funny? And are we going to build a world together? And if you're starting with just this answering questions and giving information, it's simply boring. Even if you have a great job, all of that, it's almost like you want it to be a pattern interrupt. If you have a great job and if you want her to know about that, you want that to be a pattern interrupt to you guys having a good time together. And then it's all by the way. And again, without just saying what you do, you connect it to your values. What was really important for me to choose a job that maybe you make a lot of money, right? So you choose a job that made a lot of money because it was always my dream to take care of my parents or my mom. And now I have an opportunity to do that. I might not do it forever, but this is, and so you're connecting it to values and giving her a sense of who you are as a person. Remember, women want kind. They want to know that you have good character. They want to know that your interest is in them. Remember this, that whether you like it or not, in dating, we are selecting for people who are going to affirm who we are as people. So you get a acceptance letter from Harvard. That's exciting, right? That's like, well, they have high standards. If you get an acceptance letter from a community college that literally takes 100% of the people that come in, it's not as exciting, right? And that's because, again, you know that the standards are down here. It doesn't mean anything that I got in. So you really want to convey to the other person that you are learning about who she is and that it matters to you to connect your own standards and your values to hers, and that way you can build rapport. The other thing,
just real quick, do you know I have a degree from Harvard?
I did not know that.
Yeah, Harvard on the Bayou, baby.
And why did you choose Harvard? What values?
Nickel State, Harvard on the Bayou.
Yes, Harvard on the Bayou, me too.
Right,
Go Colonels. So so we want to make sure that you're developing that first, the interest, okay? And then you want to be able to hold sexual tension, because another thing that Charlie Rupert says is that a lot of them get really uncomfortable with that natural sexual tension that builds up. So they have to crack a joke while they're dancing together. When they're getting close, they get nervous, right? It's the sexual tension that builds up, especially on that first date or when you're getting to know somebody to see if you actually like them or if she likes you. It can be a little unnerving.
It deflects the awkward.
Yes. So some men will get awkward in the space of that and they'll try to escape it. But then they interrupt that sexual tension, right? So he says you want to actually create sexual tension and actually be comfortable with it. So if you're on a date, sitting close to her, and then when it's appropriate to do so, touching her hand and making contact, so that at the end of the night, if you try to kiss her, it's not just like this awkward, now we haven't touched all night, we haven't had any sort of sexual tension, and all of a sudden you're going in for gold. The other thing he says is to flirt with the world. So the next person you should flirt with is literally the next person that you talk to, the old man on the elevator, like whoever it is. He said a lot of guys will be snipers about it. They go through their life nice and boring with no smile on their face. They don't talk to the cashier. They don't talk to anyone. And then they see this beautiful girl at the bar that's surrounded by men who are interested in getting her attention. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, I'm going to turn it on, right? And they try to go in and like Hulk their way into it. He says, no, you want to actually have this habituated within your system, creating playfulness and being interesting and creating a vibe everywhere you go. That's much better. It's much better to be that way with literally everybody. And then it so happens that somebody that you're interested in is there and she happens to be folded into it versus you just being this boring person that walks through life and then tries to all of a sudden pull out something. In other words, in that scenario, it would be more of a stretch. It
Well,
wouldn't
what
feel
I
as
would
natural.
do is just walk by and with all the guys around and just go, look, when they quit boring you, just let me know.
Right. Exactly. And that would be demonstrating humor, right?
Yeah.
So then you want to watch because there's a lot of, so just remember that the strongest position is to be either sharing your values or setting a vibe. Set a vibe or share your values instead of giving information. You're not on a podcast without leading with your card, that sort of thing. So here's some cues that she might be interested, that it might be working for you. So don't miss the cues, right? So she tilts her head, right? So they call this the come hither look. She tilts her head and shows the roundness of her face. So she's looking up at you and now this actually releases pheromones in men. Why? Because we're actually showing the neck, right?
It's working.
There you go. Science. So she's got the come hither look, right? She's tipping like this. And then she might be touching her neck. She touches her neck or she flips her hair to show like the shininess of the hair. Now this is not a conscious thing, like, oh, I'm gonna show the shininess of my hair. It's just an unconscious thing that shows that like she's being vulnerable. Okay. The other thing is that Marilyn Monroe, like that raised eyebrows, but with the lower lid. I can't do this. So you're lowering the lids, but you're raising the eyebrows, right? So it's
Hey.
kind of like that bedroom look, and it creates this testosterone. In general, what women naturally do is create vulnerability and a look of helplessness around men because it activates their testosterone, men's testosterone, and makes you want to take it. This is why Vanessa Van Edwards says we actually even wax and pluck our eyebrows to make them higher, is because it makes you look more innocent. And this is why when women smoke, they expose their wrist versus men who just smoke like this, right? Expose the wrist because, again, this is a feminine, helpless kind of thing. The kind of snap thing that people do to indicate femininity, like a limp wrist, an exposed neck, all of those things indicate that she's interested. If she's laughing a lot, touching a lot, that means that what you're doing is working.
We're going to have to do part 3 and 4 in this. And what you've just done is every guy who's watching the show is getting ready to go hit the shower, put the hairspray on. They're heading out to the local clubs.
Yes, be
All right.
interesting.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
All right, how to flirt with women. We're going to have to expand on that in future shows. We'll see you again next week.